Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be starting episode 24 in our Catacombs series, where I try to take you on some deep dive tutorials with specific detour edits. And today's topic is going to be all about stats, properties, and AutoMods. Now this will be a bit of a mishmash topic to help you guys understand a couple different things about it, as I know there's been a little bit of confusion on the topic in our Discord. So with all that said, if you guys are liking this kind of content, make sure you like and subscribe, helps everybody out, and be sure to check out the video description below for links to our website, Discord, Patreon, and some of the other links or tools that you might need today. With that out of the way, let me jump into the kind of overview of today's video. So once more, it's going to be discussing stats, properties, and AutoMods, or AutoMods some of you may know as AutoMagic. And this will let us kind of control things and dive a little deeper into this topic. So we'll be starting out in kind of a little more basic territory at level 1. We're going to be taking an unused stat that's already kind of functioning in the game. It's just not fully implemented like some of the other elements. That stat is going to be the magic mastery stat, and we're going to be showing you how you can turn that into a usable plus magic damage or plus magic skill damage stat. And so we'll be taking advantage of both that existing stat as well as creating a new property to help control it. We'll also be diving into level 2 after that, which is combining new properties and stats as well as OP parameter functions to modify stats based on other stats, which may be useful depending on your goals. And for that example, we'll be taking advantage of if a player has 2 sources of half freeze duration, then the automatically gain cannot be frozen through our modifications for that. And then finally, we'll be combining some of those examples together as well as expanding upon it a little further by creating a new strength percent stat that will, modify your original strength, obviously, a new property that will help control that, as well as a AutoMod so that we can assign it to specific items based on our requirements. So with that baseline out of the way, let's jump in as usual to grabbing out the needed files for today. So let me go ahead and get things prepared. For the gameplay type edits, we're going to start in our texts. To add a new property, I'm going to really surprise you guys here. We're going to go ahead and pull out properties.text. To add our new stat, we're going to go ahead and pull out itemstat.cost.text. Because we want to display this new stat and show its effects on a skill such as Holy Bolt, I'm going to go ahead and pull out skills.text. We're going to add one of these new stats to our AutoMod, like I mentioned before. So we're going to pull out automagic.text. We're going to add that AutoMod to a weapon in our example. So let's go ahead and pull out weapons.text. And then finally, because we like to make things easy, we're going to go ahead and pull out cubemain.text so we can create our cheater items for it. That's all the text files we need. Now the last thing we need is our string file to add our new stat reference. So for that, we're just going to data local strings, and we're going to pull out item modifiers.json. As you can see, I've already done that. So with all those files out, we're ready to jump in and start with the edits. So once more as a reminder, our first edit today is going to be taking that unused magic stat that's already functioning in the game. It's just not fully implemented like the other elements, and we're going to turn it into more or less a fully functioning stat. So to start with that, let's go ahead and pull up item stat cost.text and find the stat we're talking about. I'm going to go ahead and lock these up for now. We're going to scroll to the very bottom here, and let me go ahead and point your attention to ID 357 in retail, which is the stat in question, passive Maj Mastery. Again, as you can tell from the kind of things like the send bits, the save bits, this is a functioning stat, just not quite like all the other ones. In fact, if we scroll over, we can see for the string entries that it has none, and this means even if you were to acquire the stat on your character, you just wouldn't know about it. So to fix that, we're going to kind of use the other masteries as a clone. So again, you can see these elements, fire, lightning, cold, poison, that kind of have proper implementations. We're going to go ahead and copy that, and we're going to paste it into our magic mastery. Obviously, control the advanced display column how you'd like if you'd want it to be displayed like the others. Oops, others are not. Sorry, I had a frog in my throat. All we want to do is go ahead and change the actual key that this stat is going to use for the string. So we don't want it to use the fire key anymore. We're going to create a new one for magic. So I'm just going to go and update that. Obviously rename it whatever you'd like, but let's go ahead and paste that in. And so our new stat edit is done because again, we already had it functioning. We just didn't have the string and stuff, attached to it. Now, as a reminder, if you want to change the actual save bits and all that, you can. Just be warned about doing that, as I mentioned in kind of my kill death tracker video and stuff like that. If you're not familiar with that, I do have a link in that in description. It also goes into a little bit about how the stats work and things. So anyways, we've created our actual stat. What we want to do now is give it a property. Now a property I like to think of as kind of your stat chef. It doesn't really do much except cook your stat how you like it. And so for this example, what I want to do is we're going to go ahead and make a new property here. And I'm going to go ahead and copy one of the previous entries for the other masteries. So we can see here the stat it's controlling is fire mastery. So we don't need to, but just to make things easy, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that as our reference. We're going to go ahead and change it to extra-mag for magic, excuse me. And then again, this is basically just controlling how we want the stat cooked. And what I mean by that is we take a look here at function 1. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up in the data guide, our trusty handy dandy friend here. And let's go to properties.txt and we look up that function 1 table. And we can see that for function 1, what it's telling that how that stat to decide what it is it's going to randomly calculate between its min and max values. So when you have this, entry in your cube recipe or in your item, and you have, the min is 10 and the max is 40, this is how it decides to roll, somewhere in between there. In this particular case, just as a side note, if the item's superior, it's going to always choose the max value. So expanding on this, if, for example, we wanted to change that behavior, we could use function 2, and that would modify it so it's always set to its max value. So again, that same item that had 10 in min and 40 in max, that 10 would be completely ignored, and it would always choose 40. So that function is going to change exactly how that information is used. Since you don't have access to full-on calculations, this kind of on a base level helps with that. So you can get fancier. I'm going to show you one last example and then we'll kind of move on. Here's function 3, for example, which is the same as function 1, but consecutive calls of the function will use the same stat value as the previous call. Now what that means is, let's say, again, because these properties are just kind of a collection of things you're sending to your chef, your order of what you want. Let's use resistances as an example. You can have all of the resistances controlled by a single property. They're all grouped together. And maybe one of the behaviors you would like is that when it rolls whatever values you give it, it rolls the same value for all of those resistances. In that case, you might want to use function 3 because then consecutive calls, so each call for the other stats that it goes to apply, it's not going to re-roll the min and max values every time. It's going to use the same value it got on the first roll. So that can be useful for groups and stuff. So once more, the properties don't do much other than tell it how you want that stat assigned, or again, is just like for the analogy's sake, it's how you want your stat cooked. Do you want it min, max? You want it always max? You want it somewhere in between? Do you need a special parameter to control skill IDs? You can get fancy with that if you want. Anyway, so we've understood how they work now, and again, all we need is something basic, like, yeah, just choose something between the two values I give you, that's fine. And then we need to tell it what stat that we need it to control. So that's pretty simple. We're just going to tell it to use that unused one. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that in here. And we can update like the tooltip if we want to remind ourselves for later, like what it actually is, like, oh, hey, it's not fire anymore, it's magic. But we're all set there. So we've both modified our stat to add our new string, and then we've created a new property and then assigned it to that stat with whatever special function or not that we wanted to give it, to again help us decide the value that it officially gets applied to the item or such. With that done, we're halfway done. We've kind of done the meat of the potatoes. Now we just need to add our string. So for that, we're going to pull up the item modifiers.json, which I've already cheated and opened up here. And I'm going to go ahead and just copy paste this entry, but you can copy and paste really any of them. This will just give us a good baseline. So I've already covered how to edit strings in previous videos. I'm not going to go over it in here. So if I go a little too fast on these next parts for you, then you should watch those. Anyways, we're going to go and use 555 as our ID. We're going to go ahead and pop in our key that we assigned for the magic mastery in the text file up here. So we're just going to go ahead and copy and paste that. And that's our key. For our English entry here, I'm just going to quickly explain what this means. Percent plus D just means go ahead and show whatever the stat value is with a plus sign in front of it. And the percent after it is the JSON's way of saying add a single percent sign after the value. That first percent is kind of an escape character. I won't go into details, but just understand that all this translates to is plus value percent. So for example, plus 10%, plus 25%, etc. So I want to keep that. All I want to do is just change it to say something like plus magic skill damage. I'm going to show you one extra optional step here if you haven't used it already by showing the string translate script I went ahead and wrote for D2R. It is not perfect, but if you'd like to translate your strings to other languages, you can simply click play, paste your string in, hit enter. It's going to spit out your needed file here, my translated strings.json. So you can go ahead and just copy and paste all the entries. Obviously leave your ID and key is what you need them as, and we can just go ahead and paste that over all the rest, and now you've translated them to all the other languages. So we're going to go ahead and save that, and now we've added our new string. So we're almost done we've gotten all our base core stuff done. Now we're just ready to start applying it. So for that, we're going to go ahead and pop in our skills.txt. Because this stat doesn't quite function fully like the other elements do, like your cold, fire, etc., we need to make some manual additions to kind of to soft code our way to using it. So I'm going to, for example, use Holy Bolt here as our kind of guinea pig, and we're going to scroll all the way to the end of the file here, and just to confirm, we can see that for the E-type field, it is indeed magic, so it makes sense that we want magic skill damage to apply to this skill, but for example, maybe not holy fire since it's based off fire damage. So we can ignore kind of all the values and stuff. The only part we care about in this particular case is going to be our synergy field calculation column, which currently gains its benefits from Fist of the Heavens and its skill level here. This is what we're going to use to also tell it, hey, I want you to also look at this new stat I added, help that to calculate your damage also. So I'm going to go ahead and just for argument's sake, I'm going to copy and paste this into Notepad just to make editing it a little more visual. So I'm going to keep this current calculation together. So to do that, I'm just going to group them in parentheses real quick. And then we want to tell it, go ahead and tack on whatever magic mastery damage I have as well. So we're going to just go ahead and say plus, and then we're going to go stat. We're going to paste in our name of our actual stat. And then we're going to say the accrued value. So now it's going to add, whatever that stat value happens to be to the existing synergy values that it's already getting. Now, obviously, if you wanted this to be multiplicative instead of additive, then you can control that as well. You can do your times, I don't know, what is it, 100, divided by blah, blah, blah. So you can do all that as well. We're just keeping it simple for argument's sake, and we're just going to add it directly on. So you might want like high percents if you're doing this particular method or calculation. So anyways, so all we're going to do is paste it into the synergy column. So now it's our new synergy calculation, and you can see that here if I expand out the column that we have that listed now, and now it will apply to Holy Bolt. But as you might have guessed, it doesn't apply apply to any other skill in the game yet. For example, Bone Spirit wouldn't benefit from it because we haven't added it to Bone Spirit. So you will have to add this individually for each thing. And I also realized, okay, yeah, everything's fine. Sorry, I thought I made a typo. So you will have to add it individually for everything because it's not one of these fully implemented skills or stats in the base game. So with that said, though, we are going to pretend that we've magically edited all the magic skills we wanted to apply to, and now all that we're left to do is actually give it to our character somehow. So we can do it a few ways. I'm going to show you AutoMods in a kind of the next tutorial. So for now, we're just going to do the cheater way, and we're going to go ahead and pop it in our cube main. So let me add a couple dummy rows up here just to make things a little visual. We're going to enable it. We're going to go ahead and set the inputs to 1. We're going to say it just to use an identify scroll and go ahead and create us a magic charm. We'll go ahead and make that level 99, I guess. Again, for our mod 1, this is going to be our new property that we just created. So that's going to be our extra dash match. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that in, and we're going to say we want it to be just like some stupid high number. I don't know. So we're just going to say we want, I don't even know what the cap is. We're just going to say we want it somewhere between 100 and 200% extra magic damage. You know, we want it to be very high. And again, we know it's going to be somewhere in between there because of the function we set. If, just as a final nail in the coffin, I set that to 2, then this 100 would be completely useless because it's only looking at the max value anyways. So just once more, that's how you kind of want things to be handled on the game side of things. But we're happy with this. We're saying that that's balanced and that's what we wanted. So we're going to save that changes. We're going to go ahead and launch the mod, and we're going to make sure I haven't been wasting your guys' time for the last 10 minutes. So we'll get this loaded in. I'll get that charm spawned up, and we'll see what's going on. All right, there we go. So you can see our, random value between 100 and 200 rolled as 1, 2, 3. Kind of funny. But anyways, and we can see because we added the string that everything appears correctly. But the real question is does it actually work? So we can go ahead and take a look at our holy bolt damage, and we can see our min damage is at like 2156. And if we go ahead and pop our charm on, we can see that it now bumps up to 2397. So obviously, again, depending on whether you're using additive, multiplicative, what other calculations are going in, you can adjust that how you want, but we can see that clearly now our plus magic skill damage is working. And if we were to go ahead and pull up in our advanced stats, it is go ahead and displaying there. So that is our first kind of breakdown on how you can take advantage of both stats and properties to help add new things into skills, items, etc., and kind of break that down a little further. So with that understood, let's roll on to level 2 and show you how you can add a new property, stat, and kind of control things a little dynamically based on each other. For that, as a final reminder, we'll be taking a look at if the player has 2 different items, each with half freeze duration on them, that the stats will automatically add together to become a cannot be frozen for the player. And this is just a different way to accomplish this that has kind of the least drawbacks. And again, will help showcase how you can interact with some of this on a more fundamental level. So to do that, first we're going to create our new stat itself. So let's go ahead, and I have item stat cost back open here, and I'm going to add a new blank row. Just got to remember how to use the program. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and call this, let's call it stat, and then I'm going to call it like half to full. And that's just to help us remember that it's a new stat and you know exactly what it's doing. So let's go ahead and ID it just for argument's sake. And then all we really need to do is for the save bits, we're going to go ahead and give it a value of 1 just so it kind of saves something. And now we're going to get into the fancy stuff, which is the OP parameter columns. And this is going to help us intermingle things a little bit. I don't know why I keep opening that window. Anyways, so to help understand that, let's go ahead and go up item stat cost.text. And again, we want to take advantage of these OP parameter columns. There's not a good way to explain exactly why I'm using this method, other than, I'd have to break them all down for you. So I'm going to skip to the chase and say that the best option for this particular implementation would be function 2. The reason for this is because of the actual calculation that the bi-level operator uses. Basically, it's going to use this calculation. So it's going to take the OP stat, multiply it by the OP base, and then bit shift it by the OP parameter. I don't want you guys to get all glassy-eyed just by me kind of talking about that, so let's just break it down together and we'll show you how it works. So for the OP, I'm going to go ahead and put in a value of 2. For the OP param, I also don't want to put in a value of 2. Now the reason for that is that because the OP stat, which is going to be kind of our cannot be frozen, we want it to be uh, uh, it's going to multiply that by our 2 for our OP base, because we'll have 2 or more half freeze duration. And then again, it's going to bit shift it by 2. And the end result of all this nonsense is that when you have 2 or more half freeze duration, you're going to have 1 cannot be frozen. Now, if you keep stacking half freeze duration, technically you will have more than 1 cannot be frozen. However, that's not a problem for this particular stat as long as it's below 2 to the 7th power or 128. So I know that might still be a little bit confusing, but I promise it will make a little more sense once it's in game. The important thing we need to know is that for our OP base, this is the stat that's going to help ultimately control the outcome. And so again, as I mentioned, this is kind of our half freeze duration. So let me try to quickly find that. That's not working, so let me just do a search. Okay, so this is the stat we want as like our kind of base thing that it's evaluating to see whether or not it should do anything. And again, the stat we want it to control is the cannot be frozen stat. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a search for that, and we're going to copy that entry. So once more, with these settings, with the OP of 2 and the OP parameter of 2, then once 2 or more half freeze duration is achieved, it's automatically going to apply 1 to cannot be frozen as long as our new stat, half to full, exists on that item. Now we don't need to add any strings to it because we can just have this be like a hidden effect that just kind of makes sense. You know, you got 2 halves, you get a full. It doesn't need to be displayed, so we're just going to go ahead and save it there. But we do want to modify a property so that we can take advantage of this right away. Now, we could technically add a new property, but probably the easier way is just to go ahead and do another search for half and add it to the existing property so that whenever it adds 1 to half freeze duration, it's just going to go ahead and add 1 to our half to full stat as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop that in there for our property, and it's going to, for function 2, we're just going to use 1 again. That's fine because we're going to just set it to 1 manually. And then for the second stat to control, for stat 2, we're going to go ahead and paste our new stat in. So now the property half dash freeze controls 2 stats, the half freeze duration and our new half to full converter stat. So we're going to go ahead and save that. And now we're going to, once more, apply this property into our cube. So we're going to leave our magic charm here. Instead, we're going to apply this half freeze property. We want it 1 and 1, and we'll go ahead and save that. And so now once more, we're going to go ahead and see if I wasted your guys' time. We're going to generate that new charm in here, which should basically just give us half freeze duration. But when we equip 2 of those charms, we should then see that we automatically gain cannot be frozen. So let's go ahead and get the advanced stats pulled up. So there's our half freeze duration. And whoops, if I show that here, we can see it has half freeze duration, but no cannot be frozen or anything. But if I go ahead and add my second one on here, now I got 2 half freeze durations. Now I automatically have cannot be frozen. So it doesn't remove the old one or anything, but it will clearly show that now you have cannot be frozen. And then once more, if I were to take it off or anything, then that goes away. So that can show you how you can kind of link different stats together and control them depending on what functions you use, what value you use, etc. You can get fairly fancy with that. And now finally, to round out this deep dive into property stats and stuff, we're going to create another brand new stat for strength percent. We're going to give it a new property and all that stuff. And then we're going to also show you an alternate way you can assign some of this stuff directly to specific items and things. So for that, let's go back to item stat cost. We're going to create another stat. And let's go ahead and let's see, what do we want to call this one for you guys? I guess we can just do strength percent. That's fine. So the easiest way is probably just to clone max HP percent, just as a starter base. The less things you got to edit, the better. So let me find that real quick. I wish I remembered the things. Oh, there it is. So we're just going to go ahead and clone this row actually. Let me just select the clone option and we'll just edit things as we need. So let me go ahead and remove this dummy one I inserted. Sorry. So let's go ahead and change this to item and then we'll just call it strength percent. So this is going to be a stat we use to control the strength. We can adjust all the different safe bits and stuff. And just to quickly explain those to you, since I understand that might confuse some of you as well, the important thing you really need to worry about is the save bits column and the save add column. If it's saving like directly to the character file and stuff, then you might also want to worry about send bits and stuff. But I definitely would read the data guide if you start going into that route. For most of you, all you're going to need to care about is the save bits and save at. For that, I'm going to show you one more resource I've linked in our Discord and in the video description here below, which is a miscellaneous calculator with a whole bunch of different things that you can use. So real quickly here, if you go to the main page, there's a monster and skill calculator. You can just kind of paste stuff in. It'll spit out all their damage values and HPs and everything like that. And then in the miscellaneous calc tab, you can find the section we care about for this, which is the min and max stats. So based on what the save bits and save add are, it's going to determine the max value for this stat. So I'm going to go ahead and plug these in just so you can see an example here. So we got 6 and 10. And if I can see I pop that in, that the lowest stat I can ever have for this is -10, and the max stat that I can ever have is 53. And so if that's fine with you, then you can use this. If, however, you wanted more of that stat to appear on a single item, maybe you wanted plus 100% strength to appear on a specific item, then you're going to need to increase your save bits or your save add appropriately. For example, if I increase my save bits to 7, we can see that now my max stat is 117. So that might be more appropriate to what I want. Just keep in mind that when you're changing save bits and save add, especially for those stats that already exist in the game that players have, you will break their characters if you change their save bits because you're changing the save structure itself. So just keep in mind doing that sparingly or try to knock it all out at once if you can, etc. But anyway, so we've created your new stat. It's in the designated value range that you want. Now we're trying to have it modify your strength based off a percent. And this is one reason I recommend trying to clone something that's similar to use as a base, because it'll also help you understand how they function. So now if we look at the OP column, we can see instead of using function 2, it uses function 11. And if we hop back to our OP breakdown from Blizzard, we can see that for function 11, it's a player percent operator. And so it only applies for stats on units. If it's a stat you're trying to control that's from an item only, then you'll want to use the item percent operator instead, function 13. But this will use the following calculation, which is a pretty straightforward multiply that base stat by this percentage value. So that's exactly what we want for strength. So we're going to leave it on function 11, but we no longer want it to control max HP. We want it to control strength. So we're just going to simply type that in. Now we do want to give it a different string. So for that, we're just going to use str percent. Whoops. And so we'll go ahead and use that as our new string key, just so we can display that. And we'll go ahead and display in the advanced stats display just because. So let's go ahead and once more, we're going to add our new modifier. What the heck happened here? Okay, interesting. Anyways, let's go ahead and copy and paste this. And again, this is going to be plus to strength. I'm going to update my ID here. We're going to give it our new key for this particular stat, which is mod strength percent. And then we want to say that this is just going to be plus, and we'll call it strength bonus. I don't know, I guess. And then once more, if we want to go ahead and use the little translator thing, we can go ahead and hit play, say run, go ahead and paste it in, hit enter, and then wait for it to spit out our results. Here we go. And now we've translated that one as well. So we'll go ahead and save our results. We now have our strength percent bonus also applied. So once more, we've added the stat for it. Now we just need to give it a property as well if we want to control this with items and things. So just like we did for some of the other entries, we're going to go ahead and just add our new option here. We'll go ahead and name this str percent as the property name. We can use function 1 so it can range between the min and max, which is kind of like the normal function, if you will. Again, the actual stat it's going to control is our new one that we called item strength percent. Again, name it, kind of whatever you want, but that's what we're controlling. And then once more, if you wanted to add, like what it, does, plus strength bonus for the tooltip. You can kind of help fill it in for that. And you're all set with your new property as well. So just like before, we're essentially done. We've added our string, our stat, our property, everything set how we want. We just haven't actually added it to any items. But instead of cheating and using cubemain, because obviously you don't want everything to, have that be the way the player acquires it. Now we're going to dive into AutoMagic and kind of weapons.txt and show you how that might work. Obviously, you can set it up how you'd like. The first thing I'm going to do is we're going to set up a new entry. So I'm just going to add a new row here, and we're going to start explaining a little bit about how this works. You can name it whatever you want. This doesn't actually appear on the item. It's more for your own benefit. So we're just going to call it of strength bonus. And then, if you want it for a specific version or whatever. For the rare column, this is if it can spawn on rare items and stuff. Sorry about that, I had to cough. Wouldn't worry too much about that. For our purposes, we're going to set everything very basic. Like anybody can use it. It's level 1, level required 1. The frequency is 1, so it's just like everybody gets it. The only thing we're going to really care about is that we want it to be on a new group number. So it's kind of separate from, the other auto magics. So we're going to set it to group 306. And then we need to give it the property that we want for this auto magic. So that's pretty easy. We're going to use our str percent property, and we're going to assign it there. Now here we can, just like before, as normal, we can give it a min and max value. So I'm going to say it's super strong or something, that we're going to give it a 10 to 20% strength bonus, and we could be done with the stat right there. Now just as a quick recap, we can also add our extra magic property or our half freeze property or other things in here as well. This is just, another way to kind of control that stuff. So we'll just go ahead and fill in those zeros there just because. And now we're done with also adding this to a specific auto magic entry. However, this auto magic entry isn't actually assigned to anything yet. So now we're going to go ahead and pull up weapons.txt, and we're going to say, for argument's sake, that we just really wanted hand axes to have a strength bonus for some reason. So we're going to go ahead and scroll over, and we're going to see a column here that says auto prefix. For this entry, again for the hand axe, we're going to go ahead and put in the group number that we assigned our new affix to. Obviously, if there's multiple affixes within this group, then you're going to have some rolling depending on what level it's assigned to and all that kind of stuff. But we're keeping it simple. There's only one stat in this group, and that is group 306. So I'm going to go ahead and pop in 306 here for the auto prefix, and now all hand axes, all normal hand axes and stuff, they're automatically going to have this prefix on them, just existing. So we're kind of done actually. We've created our stat, our property, we've told it how we want it to apply. In this case is it's to only hand axes because we're sick and twisted like that. So let's go ahead, we're going to run over to Charcy and we should see that our hand axe now comes with our new string and all that fun jazz. And of course she's not going to give me a hand axe. Uh, sorry, see you making me look bad, girl. Alright, let's try it again. Oh, and something broke. We made an error. I forgot to tell it what type of item. So let's quickly fix that live mistake, and this is why I do it live for you guys. So all I forgot was I didn't tell it what type of items this should apply to. So we're just going to say it applies to all items, but you could, apply it to axes or whatever only if you wanted. That was just a oopsie on my part. So anyways, we've applied it to any weapon, but the only weapon that's actually assigned that prefix is our axe. So let's try that again and try not to make even more of a fool of myself. So get the old junky ones out and let's hope for better luck on the next one. There we go. So now we can see our plus 11% strength bonus, and then obviously, this one got plus 17 roll instead. You can, again, make them whatever you want, but now we can see it's definitely applying onto the item. And then if we look at our strength, I'm at 999 currently. It's definitely a legit character, I promise. And then we pop on our 17%. I get my 17% bonus. So with all that said, I appreciate you guys' patience. I know that could have been quite a lot depending on where you are in your mod learning process, but hopefully you can understand how these things break down, how you can use them basically however you want, and just understand that properties are just the chef in the kitchen. You're just telling it how you want your stats cooked. They're not really complicated. Just think of them as like an ID or something. With that knowledge, thanks for sticking around to the end. You guys are rock stars. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.